Good evening. Welcome to our month-long e-campaign, the Breast Cancer Action Month, brought to you by IHW Council and Novartis India. In the second edition of the Breast Cancer Awareness Campaign, we bring together all stakeholders, be it policymakers, experts, oncologists, social workers, influencers, and cancer warriors who have successfully overcome breast cancer on this platform to create awareness about it and motivate everyone to take proactive action to reduce its risk. We believe that even if one life is saved because we are talking about breast cancer, this campaign will be a success. Around the world, October is observed as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we dedicate our efforts to all the brave men and women who are fighting this disease. Let's do a recap of all the ground that we have covered in our campaign last year.
Breast cancer is the number one type of cancer in women today.
मुझे आज ब्रेस्ट कैंसर एक्शन डे से उम्मीद है कि जागरूकता और उपायों के बारे में लोगों को बताकर हम देश में ज्यादा लोगों के बीच कैंसर होने से रोक सकते हैं.
I'm confident that the contribution of the Integrated Health and Wellbeing Council will certainly help in checking and treating cancer.
That this is preventable, provided we feel ourselves on a daily basis. We love our bodies, we value them and take care of them.
Awareness around cancer, awareness around women health, awareness about around all the artificial things that we engage in, and vanity has its own impact on our health, and I think it's time to turn the tables on the other side.
In order to defeat breast cancer, it really takes a village. In other words, it's take a holistic approach, not a silo approach.
The problem is really at two levels. One is, like I said, with the media centering a lot of communication around what is significant in that month. And the second is, as a society itself, we just don't want to mention the word breast.
We have to create a complete ecosystem which can really help early detection, early treatment, and help patients live a longer and healthier life.
Make sure that you put the patient at the absolute center of any solution that you design.
We have to educate them to do their self-examination first and to encourage the women to go for tests, which is very, very important.
I see role for each and every one to come together and, make this Indian healthcare system a very robust one.
Nothing stronger, this applies to than cancer prevention as well as early detection.
Over the last 1 week, we have heard oncologists, social workers, influencers, policymakers, and cancer warriors talk about breast cancer, and nearly everyone agrees that early diagnosis is the key to fighting this disease successfully. We have also heard from cancer warriors and support groups that along with the latest medical advancements, patients need love, support, and empathy in their battle against this disease. Here are the highlights of what our experts discussed during the shows on this year's Breast Cancer Action Month.
Welcome to the second Breast Cancer Action Month, a mega month-long movement to strengthen awareness about breast cancer and encourage action against this fast-growing public health menace.
The bottom line is the lady should be made breast aware.
We are going to get better. The diagnosis is going to be early, and hopefully patients, individuals who are unfortunate to get the cancer will be fortunate because they will get access to better and better treatments.
Not for diagnosis or of cancer, but we would like the person to be familiar with a normal breast. The individual should be familiar with a normal breast.
Understanding the complexity of the disease, developing innovative therapies that changes the curve of patient survival.
It is really important for a clinician to understand the tumor makeup to deliver, to offer the right treatment for the right patient.
We tried a no-touch screening process, which is more or less like your radio frequency one which you have at the airport. Just have a no-touch screening process.
I think women should not be worried about their diagnosis of cancer. In fact, they should think it positively. Yes, they're diagnosed at an earlier stage. It's very good.
You should live each day as it comes, and then you aspire to inspire before you expire.
It is possible to cure breast cancer, and they can be as normal as possible in their life.
Our statement of intent says the conquest of cancer by choice, not chance.
It is early is to be treated early. That's the bottom line for me.
Breast cancer subject as it is should be put in the gynecological curriculum, because gynecologists are really allergic for the clinical breast examination because they are so very overworked.
When they have this cancer, or if they ever have cancer, then we have to see that we give them as a company all the support, whether it is financial, whether it is, their time off.
To move from awareness to action, that is the day to act. So that would be something that I would vouch for. And that's a day where all the different stakeholders think about what role they have to play in order to improve women's health.
The word breast cancer would send shudders down the spine of affected women and their families a few decades ago. And while the disease is the same, many believe that breast cancer diagnosed 30 years ago is not the same now. If caught early, breast cancer is highly curable, and due to advancements in medicine, side effects of the treatment is lower, survival is longer, and the quality of life is better. In our show today, we'll discuss the importance of research and clinical trials in breast cancer care. Please welcome our esteemed panelists who will be discussing this topic on the show today. We're happy to welcome Dr. Chanchal Goswami, medical oncologist, Medica Super-Speciality Hospital and Calcutta Medical Institute, Kolkata. Dr. Shyam Aggarwal, senior consultant, medical oncologist, the Ganga Hospital, New Delhi. Dr. Anju, Gopan, Medical Director, Oncology, Haematology, Medical Science and Strategy, Asia, IQVIA. Mr. Vivek, Tomar, Patient Research Advocate, Lung Cancer, Clinical Trials, Cancer Research and Timely Access to Latest Treatment in India. Dr. Manish, Mistry, Medical Director, Novartis. These are all our guests, and a warm welcome to all of us. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Aggarwal, let me start with you. The advancements in cancer treatment have made the lives of women being detected with breast cancer early much better than what it was about 30 years ago. Because I've seen it in my family. My mommy had breast cancer, and at that point of time, chemotherapy used to have horrible side effects, used to be unwell most of the time. But she is with us now. She has a lovely crop of hair. She's healthy, and she's taking care of her family. So it's been 30 years and she's absolutely fine. Now, a lot is changing. We are learning many things about how this cancer works, what is its biology. and how to treat it, how to target our treatment there. So, what are the main challenges of the knowledge that we have, assimilating all the latest research and translating it into treatment for breast cancer?
So there are many questions, which you have, raised in your simple, a few seconds talk. But I think that the topic for today's discussion is the research in, and clinical trials in breast cancer. So let me say this, that all drugs, all treatment which you see today as it stands, whether it is surgical treatment, whether it is radiation treatment, whether it is chemotherapy or it is targeted therapy, hormonal or HER2 new targeted therapies. So all these evolution in treatment happens through clinical research. What I mean by that is that, for example, let's talk about surgery. So until about 20 years ago, patients' breasts were removed in completion, total mastectomy was the practice. But now, if you have a tumor which is less than, say, 4 centimeters in size, people don't opt for total mastectomy or a complete removal of the breast. We remove a portion of that breast which is involved by cancer, which is called breast cancer surgery. And how did this happen? Because, people treated 1,000 patients with total mastectomy and 1,000 patients with partial removal of the breast, and they found there is no difference in the outcome. So this is one way, research has happened in the evolution of surgical oncology. And similarly, as you know, in cancer chemotherapy and hormonal therapy, the drugs are so rapidly evolving. So you need several years to compare the new drug with the previous medication and show to the world in terms of documentation that the new drug is better. It is giving you a better survival, giving you a better quality of life. So it's a very painstaking and long-standing exercise because cancer is a slow disease and you need to follow these women for years together for that documentation. So, every field, whether it is radiation, chemotherapy, targeted therapy, surgery, so research is the integral part of progress in breast cancer or any cancer management. Those will be my opening remarks.
Right. So it is a matter of time, which is the research and the trials, it gets translated into treatment. It's just a matter of time. Dr. Goswami, what's your belief? Do you think this timeline is manageable? Should it be shorter? How does it impact the treatment of patients?
Well, thank you, Anisha, for posing with the question. What Shyam said is very important, but at the same time, we must understand when we started our career, say a couple of decades ago or 3 decades ago, and what we are doing now. In 30 years, we have seen a sea change in the treatment of breast cancer, as Shyam was saying. And how is it possible? Because there has been rapid evolution of science, and that has happened because we have understood the disease much better. The basic science or the pharmacogenomic study has made us understand breast cancer much better. When I was a student, the way I was looking at breast cancer, and now as a clinician, I look at breast cancer as various disease within a stronghold of disease. So every single breast cancer comes to me with a different genomic profile, and I treat as every breast cancer as a single entity. And we have modalities of treatment for every single breast cancer. So X's treatment is not similar to Y's treatment and not similar to Z's treatment. So what has happened, even within breast cancer, there are multiple varieties, plethora of varieties of breast cancer. Even a hormone receptor positive breast cancer can have various kinds of breast cancer and can be treated differently. And what has happened with this rapid research, the most important thing is what used to happen earlier, this research used to come very late in India. And now since India has become a participant in majority of these global trials, so the trial is happening here and the drug, say for instance, a drug gets approval, US FDA in the United States, in the next month, probably DCGI is approving it in India and our patients are able to get it. And even better, our patients are able to get those drugs in the clinical trial setting, which earlier it was never going to happen. So you used to wait for years together for a new development to come in. And who has benefited most? I think the patient, because they have got the benefit of this new treatment in a much rapid turnover time. And as a clinician, we have been also benefited immensely because we have been able to get the hang of the drug much quicker than earlier we used to get. So I believe what Dr. Shyam outlined, that clinical research is the key to development of this improvement of story of improvement of survival in breast cancer, for that matter, all cancers. And we are achieving it in a much shorter span of time. The only regret I have is if we could have had more clinical trials in India, our patients would have benefited more, though it's happening much more than what it used to happen, say a decade earlier or a couple of decades earlier. But at this point of time, I think we are quite moving step by step along with our Western counterparts in doing clinical research and the most important thing, Anisha, we are creating the data from our ethnicity. The Indian patients earlier we used to mimic the Western data and we used to implement the Western data on our Indian patients. And now the Indian patients are participating in this trial. So we actually know what's happening with those drugs in our set of patients. And that's the best part.
All right. I apologize that I have missed out on introduction of one of our esteemed panelists, Dr. Ruchika Gupta, scientist, ICMR-National Institute of Cancer Prevention and Research. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. Dr. Ruchika, we've heard Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal talk about how advancements are helping breast cancer patients in our country because of clinical trials also taking place. And the fact that when research is done, it finally does translate into treatment for patients is a good thing. Now, are we doing indigenous research ourselves? The clinical trials, are these only the ones which are done by foreign innovator companies? Are we doing our own research? Because I read a recent report saying that a known institute in our country has figured out how a gene, how a tumor is, suppressing a particular type of gene, and this helps in understanding how breast cancer progresses in our body. So, are we doing enough of indigenous research into cancer care and breast cancer specifically in our country?
Right. Thank you so much for inviting me on this esteemed panel. So, yes, as Dr. Shyam and Dr. Goswami has pointed out, cancer research in today's era is definitely much more than what it was probably 2-3 decades ago. And yes, India is foraying a lot into indigenous cancer research. Now, I am representing an institute where the main mandate is cancer prevention and cancer research. And what I can say is that so far as breast cancer goes, our institute currently is carrying out testing for early detection of breast cancer, because as was pointed out in the capture of your program in 2020 and the last week's proceedings, apart from effective treatment, what is more important in breast cancer care right now is being able to detect them early with affordable means. In the West, mammography is undertaken, but that is not feasible in our country. So we are currently validating certain indigenous products which have been developed in India, which could probably be path-breaking for early detection of breast cancer. And then when you go to the breast cancer treatment part, then definitely there are a lot of research projects going on. I must add that as Dr. Goswami is saying that India, there are a lot of global clinical trials where India is also a part. Now that is very important because some recent studies have shown that there is definite geographical and ethnic differences in the genetic changes when we compare the Western population and the Indian population so far as breast cancer is concerned. And that is why having indigenous breast cancer research is very important to India, so that we could highlight the kind of treatment protocols that would be workable in our own patients. We need not copy the Western patients, the Western protocols. And the drug trials now have taken a very good turn, because with the bioinformatics tools that are available currently with the drug designing companies and the drug designing researchers, the time to turn a molecule into the research protocol has shortened magnificently. So a lot of research is currently going on, at least at my institute is what I can say. There are drug designing protocols being undertaken. There are a few trials going on for finding out new molecules on cancer cell lines and everything. So that would translate into clinical trials in the coming days.
Okay, so it sounds very optimistic and very encouraging actually that so much work is being done in our country itself. And, this is very, very encouraging. Dr. Anju, hearing this makes me feel very good, but then we've had living examples of how in the very recent past, India has innovated for the COVID vaccine. We have our own homegrown solution, which has been, given to thousands of people in our country itself and also sent abroad. Now, what Dr. Ruchika spoke about is how how technology is advanced, and because of data crunching, etc., we've seen the COVID vaccine. Also, people said, "How can you rely on this? It's come in a hurry." But the truth is, it didn't come in a hurry. It's just that because of technology, a lot of data was being processed for many years, and all this came together rather quickly. So, what role do you think that technology has to play when it comes to research in cancer care and breast cancer treatment?
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting and also, being the esteemed panel group. I would say, technology at present, I was in the clinical side for about 10 years back, and now I'm on the clinical research side. So I've seen both sides actually. I was by and also the investigator part, and now I'm seeing the global arena of clinical trials and the innovative protocol designs and the technology which been incorporated for development. I agree what Dr. Ruchika said. One thing about what you said about the COVID vaccine, one is demand. Demand also raises our our mind to bring about our own things.
And
That
our
is what
response
we.
time.
Yes. And that is one thing which we saw in last 1 year, and we saw that we could do it. That's it. It's not that we can't do it. Same thing we can do for the oncology side also. But going to Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal's question, the answers also, I would say on both sides on the clinical trial, incorporating the technology with your question, I would say there is a landscape change from last, 10, 15 years. And, but still we have positive and also negative. And we shouldn't be, euphoric about the positive things that we can do. But no, there is a big gap in getting the latest clinical trials to India, the latest treatment modality to India, and the marketing, the treatments marketed in India. Especially, I'm focusing on breast cancer. This is something very close to me, my heart, this topic. I was planning an advisory board also on this, because this is one of the highest incidence and also death rate is high in India and also the world. Breast cancer is not coming down with even having a lot of treatments and clinical trials happening and newer genomic, biomarker driven treatments are happening. But what happened is the protocol designs have changed, as Dr. Ruchika said. Earlier we used to take about 7 to 8 years at least to have some data from the clinical trial, whether it's benefiting or safety. Now we have adaptive trial designs, and phase ones we have seamless designs, and incorporating statistics have changed. The informatics which has been incorporated into protocol developments have changed, and we can detect early whether the molecule is benefiting or not, and we can have data earlier than that, and we can market earlier. And now the regulatory, even the clinical trials have refined so well that it has changed last 10 years. That is what I would like to say, but still we are a little bit way behind, and we have to buck up our demand and work towards that.
I'm sure the demand is there, Dr. Anju. We have so many cancer patients, the breast cancer patients who are being diagnosed. The demand is there, but of course, there is a gap between the pricing and the demand. The affordability is also a big challenge. Dr. Manish, Mistry, we're hearing from the sides of the clinicians, the oncologists, the treating doctors, and the researchers. Now, you tell us from the other side, from the drug company side, how challenging is it to research and bring cost-effective treatment modalities for breast cancer? Because research is not cut and dry. It involves risk. You could be working on something and it could fail. So, how challenging is it to bring cost-effective treatment?
So thank you, Anisha, for this question. And I must say that drug discovery and drug development is a long drawn process. It's a risky and iterative process where there is a lot of gaps which may happen in the development phase. As you rightly said, there could be a late stage failure which could happen. So just to tell you that when we have 10,000 compounds in screening, only 250 compounds come to the preclinical stage. And out of this 250 compounds, only 5 compounds come in clinical trials, in human trials. And then out of these 5 compounds, only 1 compound gets approved by regulatory agencies. So there are 4 compounds which went under a full clinical development, but they fail. So the cost of failure is very high in drug discovery and drug development, and that is what I think is hampering in the cost-effective access or development of cancer treatment. Not only cancer treatment, but all drugs. That is number one. The number 2, I think, is the regulatory barrier. The regulatory requirements are so high. If you see US FDA requirement for any drug development, it is very, very tedious exercise, and it requires a lot of effort from the discoverer and from the researcher to follow those requirements and then get those requirements fulfilled and get the drug finally approved by the regulatory agencies. Fortunately, in cancer, at least the US FDA has recognized that it's important to shorten this timeline, and therefore, because of this, they have allowed sort of a approval of drug after phase 1 study itself. And they then ask us to do confirmatory phase 2 and phase 3 studies, particularly for areas which are high unmet medical need. Similarly, I think in India also regulators can help us to shorten this timeline by having the approval timelines shortened in India. As Dr. Shyam said that after US FDA approval, it's not within 1 month. Actually, it takes at least a year for us to bring the new drug in the country.
Yes, that that is a shame that once the US FDA approves the drug, there should be red tape that prevents it from coming to India early. And let's hope that our own drug regulator will look into this whole issue as well. Now we have Vivek with us, and Vivek is a patient advocate. His wife had cancer, and Vivek, I'd request you to please just take us through your journey as a caregiver. Your wife had lung cancer, but what are your beliefs as far as clinical trials is concerned?
Sure. Thanks, Anisha, and thanks IHW Council for inviting and ensuring our patient voice is part of the panel. Because patient voice matters, because we are the one who are here, the customer, and facing the pain day-to-day life. So thanks again. My wife's journey and the clinical trial is journey of every cancer in India. So my wife had a cancer which is rare, used to happen to those who are young, non-smokers, and mostly females. And at the age of 29, when our son was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer metastatic to brain, adnexia, ovaries. And it was after many stages of misdiagnosis, we found that this is stage 4 and we have given 6 months to live. Then my wife Kusum said to me, don't cry, let's fight. If it's 6 months, 6 months, but let's fight. And we started the fighting, and that day changed Vivek forever and became a patient advocate. Within 6 months, as doctor suggested, based on the data, she went into coma. Cancer spread to every part of the body. And at that time, we found that there is a medicine. It was 2012. There is a medicine, first generation molecular therapy medicine approved in US. And we have to fight. It cost around 20 lakh per month. We sell our properties We bring those medicines that saved her. And then it was a financial toxicity fight for survival. But then we got medicine on compassionate ground, and finally she was on that medicine for 18 months. Before that, as every other stage for cancer patient, she got resistance to the medicine. At that time, her cancer started to spread in brain, and the brain mets, as they say, was 5, then 7, then 10, 12, 13, 15, and then 30. And everyone says, go take care of herself. And we were fighting. For them, it could be individual, a patient, but for my son, it was a mother, and for me, my wife, my love. So we started to fight and to understand what. Luckily, the second generation first medicine was again got conditional approval in US, and we tried to find, it was 17 lakh per month, and we have nothing left to buy anything. So we started, and we came to know that the answer is clinical trial. And we went to there, but I think something bad between 2012 to 2014, that almost all clinical trials stopped in India. And there was a term called guinea pig, and clinical trial is bad and don't go there. But my wife is dying. And we started to knock every door, from Ministry of Health, the CGI office, every big hospitals in India, every medical company. And as a middle class family, I don't know anyone, so I started to write the email and all those things. Then there was a sharp oncologist conference, and the typical Indian Jugaad pass system, who was on bed, me and my wife in that condition went into that conference. And there was a question answer session, and we were not invited. She stand up, she said, I'm an Indian, I'm a proud Indian. But is that my fault? I'm an Indian because a patient in US getting the medicine, I'm not. A patient in US getting clinical trial, I'm not. And that changed everything for that part. The trial was of Novartis, and when I accept the invitation and I find Dr. Manish Mistry name there, it was nostalgic, because at that time I was fighting with them, then I became partner with them, and then we both together with Government of India DCGI support. Within 2 months, clinical trial came to India, and Kusum became first patient to get enrolled in clinical trial. And she was cycling, she was running. So thanks Novartis and everyone involved. And at that time, this journey continues, and with again almost 24 months, there was a significant progression. And this time I thought I made connections. I became, by that time, a patient advocate, because when we bring that clinical trial of Novartis in India, it got 17 patients enrolled and everyone life saved. So we, at the time, we realized that research saves lives. Clinical trial is the answer of unmet medical need in India. And but again, the next generation medicine was available in Europe and US, but not in India. And the company said that India is not in the plan because the policy is not supporting. They are not bringing clinical trial. And we went to media houses, to national media, cover our story. It took 4 months. By the time my Kusum went into paralysis, she became the first patient of second generation first medicine again, the second generation second medicine again. And within it was 2017, and after 9 months, she was running in Pinkerton, which is Milling Soman event for cancer patient, wearing a t-shirt that this is my stage 4 cancer, year 5. I've completed 5 years, and I'm surviving because of research, clinical trials, and hope. And she ran a half marathon at that event only after 9 months of paralysis. In this journey, she participated in 6 clinical trial and research medicines. Unfortunately, in 2019, in the waiting of next clinical trial, which was again in Singapore, Australia, and so many countries, we were not able to bring in India. She passed away at the bed when I was sitting with my son, who was 10 years old. And as I said, this is every cancer journey. This is not lung cancer or cervical cancer, breast cancer. I don't agree that things have changed a lot. So just to give, because here is medical community sitting, here researcher sittings, a lot of people is listening. between 2010 to 2017, breast cancer, 3,283 breast cancer global clinical trials done. It is 7 months data, 7 years data. From 2007 to 2017, in 10 years, India has only 99 breast cancer clinical trial. Okay, 99 breast cancer, which is maximum in India, even more than US or any other country. And we are talking that we have progress. Yes, we have progress, but we are nowhere anything. My kusum has died. More kusums are dying every day. And answer is clinical trial and research, which is still far behind, and we don't have time.
Thank you, Vivek, for telling your story. Very heart-rendering story, but of great hope that your wife lived because of research. Mr. Mistry, what is the status now? Like the data that Tomar has shared, where is the block?
So, currently, fortunately, those companies who are present in India, and I think many of the innovative companies who are present in India want to do clinical trials in India. But the drug discovery and the new drugs are like spread across. There are many organizations which are not present in India, and unfortunately their trials do not come to India, because if they do clinical trial in India, they have to commercially make it available. So that's the condition which DCGI has, that if you do conduct a clinical trial in India, you have to launch that drug in India. So that's, I think, point number one, that why many research is not happening in India. The other, I think, is some of the research processes which are there in the country, which may be a roadblock. Particularly, I would say the academic research. So I think the academic research is required to be more oriented towards outcome of a disease, maybe with the new chemical compound, and doing a clinical research out of it. So that, I think, if it is increased, if you see in Western world, there are many academic institutions who are into drug discovery and who are into ensuring that new drugs are at least researched in the patients where everything else has been exhausted, and then if there are new leads that can be developed further, then there is a partnership which happens with the industry, and then the drug development happens. So that, I think, is lacking in the country, where I would request that academia can also focus on that, and that's one area where we can explore and have more research happening in the country.
Right, Dr. Mistry, just from my understanding, why is this a hurdle that if you do research, you have to launch the product in the country? There is an unmet need here in our country. Why would they not want to launch the product in our country? Is it because they don't have a commercial establishment? Is it because they don't have a reach? Where is the constraint there?
Yeah, so it's basically they are not present as a legal entity in the country. So there are many organizations who are doing clinical trials in all the therapy area, but they are not present in the country commercially. So technically, they will not be able to do in the country studies. Even if they do the studies in the country, they will have to ensure that after the trial is over, the drug is continued to be supplied to the patients who are participating in the trials.
Okay. Dr. Ruchika Gupta, Dr. Manish Mistry has raised a point about how the academic institutes can also help here. Now, while I quoted that study on how the gene suppresses how the cancer tumor suppresses a particular gene, and how that leads to progression of cancer, this research has been done in our country, but this is just pointing to the direction that here is something you can work on and create a treatment modality. Why aren't we creating these or researching on these treatment modalities ourselves in our country?
Now an answer to Dr. Mistry's point could be that there is a lot of disconnect between the various academic institutions within the country, right? Like there's a very urgent and imperative need for formation of something like cancer research consortia, which would bring together the academic institutions from the length and the breadth of the country, so that somebody in the south, somebody in Vellore, has come up with an idea of trying one molecule as a cancer treatment, can join hands with somebody sitting in Punjab, and this can lead to a wide geographical participation of Indian patients in such a trial, which would then lead to a more effective drug development. So in my opinion, this fragmentation of cancer research, which is currently prevalent in our country, is what is hindering an effective drug development and drug discovery.
Dr. Anju, would you like to come in here? I mean, what does it take to get all the academy at one platform? You have a platform where anybody in the country can hail a cab with just a press of a button. You can order your meal with a press of a button, but you don't have a system or a technology where you can bring, minds together who are working in cancer research.
Yeah, I think we can get more from Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal also from the academy and also on the clinical research organization. With my experience, I could say actually what Mr. Vivek said and Dr. Ruchika and Dr. Manish said was a gap which I mentioned in my previous explanation. We haven't, and that negative part, we haven't reached that complete positive and what to say, like euphoric state. There is a lot to go to that. And
where is the hesitation? Where is the hesitation?
Yeah, hesitation. Actually,
where is it?
What we can do, what we can say, there were many publications and data which has been taken into. India is a large country. India is a large country with a disparity in the patient population and also the oncology centers across. And we have urban and rural areas. And and clinical trial is a must. The breast cancer is one of the leading. And we have to have more. As Vivek said, even last week I was looking at the clinical trials which is coming to India, because I'm a part of the Asia Pacific and also the global clinical trials, and specifically for India also I work. And what I've seen is it's just 5% of the almost 5% of the global clinical trial which is coming to India. That is many reasons. One, we can say regulatory, but as the years went by, the regulatory has become more refined in India. But this is not showcased across the world. Still, they're not confident enough. We have to show that in many ways. And regarding the academia, we say academia, there's a difficulty. I think Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal will agree that there's a difficulty to combine everybody and start. The research is it's not affordable for a normal academia as such. They have to be funded, and in Europe and US, there is a major funding system in academia and also in other organizations which they do. Every center, most of the oncology center and the oncologists are part of research, not just clinicians. Each clinician has a research part also, and they're part of, and one of the, if you look at their prescription option and even NCCN guidelines for the treatment, one of the options is clinical trial. We don't give that option because we don't have enough. We don't have, in-house research also. We actually, from my point, I would say we can develop in-house, like we did for COVID. As you said, we can have in-house locally. We have we can develop large number of data. And as you said, the genetic variant is there. Like Jeftinib was an example of that, genetic variations in lung cancer. And we have the functionalities, but it is limited. That has to be expanded. Like the capability of us in the oncologist facilities, coordinating the oncology centers. Like Tata has developed a national cancer grid. If you go to the Google, you can see that they're trying to do that. And in that, the common standard of care guidelines has been imparted, but, and helping each other. But it's not a very, I won't say it is complete. It takes a lot of effort to complete because of the disparity we have in India. It's a large country with different regions and different kinds of people. And in that, they have a clinical trial platform also. But that can be, it's not updated yet. But then, that is the clinical trial facility is to limited centers. It's not to all centers. Like, we have to hold hands for all these things from the urban to rural to oncology centers. We have in the rural areas, we may not have that kind of oncology centers which we have in the urban centers. We are holding hands, to drain those patients or support those patients. They have difficulties. And also in the local and the Asia Pacific and also in the global, we have to hold hands to get tested. That's what I believe.
So what I'm understanding is, Dr. Anju, that it is not as easy as building an app to hail a cab because there are a lot of stakeholders here.
Yes.
And a lot of differences in our country. Work is being done, and let's hope this is scaled up faster and quickly with the help of technology, so that we have more data, and hence, we can show the world that we are doing it right. Come and do your trials in India, and because there is a ready market here. Once we,
not just
have
market,
these,
I would say. I wouldn't say our patients are market. Our patients have unmet needs.
Yes.
The breast cancer is just evolving with, when we see 5 lines of treatments in given for Europe, patients in Europe and US, and patients are surviving, we may not have options to give after second line in a metastatic breast cancer because of the affordability, or there are no clinical trials. I think Dr. Chanchal and Dr. Shyam might agree on that too. No, there might be on crossroads many times.
So basically, once we strengthen our grid, our infrastructure, then I'm sure more global players will be able to trust our systems to have clinical trials here. Dr. Shyam, it is known that the Tata Memorial Hospital, they have done a long drawn study spanning 30 years, where they have used acetic acid to, try to diagnose early cervical cancer, and using CVEs as a early diagnosis tool. The data has been spread over 30 years, and they have followed up, the patients very, very regularly over 30 years. They have managed to see that because of this acetic acid and the CVEs, they have brought down the mortality from cervix and breast cancer. So, even hospitals are doing their, this kind of research. When, people think, why would you do research? Just treat patients. There's so many people who need treatment. So what role do hospitals and, even treating physicians have on doing research, on perhaps building a bridge?
Anisha, these are very, very tough questions which you are raising, simply because the hospitals in India are overburdened with patients of cancer. So the number of institutions that we have are just not adequate to look after these patients. Number one, that is a very important issue, that the doctors or people who are in academic institutes, they are spending a lot of their time looking after patients, unlike in US or in Europe, where a physician or an academic consultant spends only 2 months out of 12 months in the clinic. 10 months he or she, they spend in research. So, that is one issue. Now, coming to the research aspect on drug discovery. You heard Dr. Manish say that you have to have 10,000 molecules and only 5 will come. So which means that more than 9,000 molecules fail. Where is the failure in our country reported? Where are those new drug discoveries? There is none. I'm happy to hear from Dr. Ruchika that now they are designing some, new drugs. Where is it happening in our country? You see, we are entirely dependent on US or on Europe to give us those new trials for new drugs. And out of 2,000 patients, India gets 100 patients, because we are entirely and totally dependent upon their skill. So, what is happening in US and Europe is that oncologists or physicians, they are actually doing not only MD, but all of them are PhD. So when they are doing PhDs and they are in academic institutes, they have that attitude to research, number one. Number two, National Institute of Health in 1975, through the Congress, passed a mandate that cancer is going to be the menace of the subsequent 3 or 4 decades, and they passed a separate budget. Where is that money? Each drug which they discover, and when it goes into clinical research, requires $1 billion. So where is that money? Where is the infrastructure to do the research? So we are nothing. We are totally dependent on US trials, dependent on Europe trials to enroll our 100, 200, 500 cases in a trial, and where we have thousands of patients. So, we are just nowhere at this point in time in drug discovery. Yes, we can do some research on understanding the genomics of cancer, which again is a very, very expensive exercise. We need to do the next generation sequencing. Each test is costing 20,000 rupees. If I have to do a study on 200 cases, I'm talking of, something like 40 lakhs of rupees. So where is that money for looking at the genome sequencing of triple negative breast cancer, hormone receptor positive breast cancer, or HER2 positive breast cancer? And you have 200 types of breast cancer. So you have to prioritize now, because of these, genomic facilities available in the market, in the commercial areas, etc., and even in the academic centers like Tata Memorial or, All India Institute, etc., it still requires a lot of money. ICMR, DBT, DST, they do give you a lot of money, but you've heard the kind of money I need to study 200 patients. So, it's a painstaking process, long-standing process. So, we are nowhere at this point in time. Yes, cervix cancer, they did some good research in terms of early detection. And as Dr. Ruchika was saying, they are focusing on newer tools to as compared to mammography, have a better tool to detect the cancer early, besides breast self-examination or clinical examination of the breast. So those are, I agree with Dr. Ruchika, practical areas for our country. But looking into drug discovery, looking into genomics, I think we are just, we do have a good number of institutions, and DST and the government of India is throwing away a lot of money. But let me ask, Dr. Ruchika or anybody here, how many publications in the field of cancer have come from India in the pioneering journals like New England Journal of Medicine, PNAS, Cell, EMBO, or Lancet? Hardly few, 2, 3 in the last 40, 50 years, or even 75 years of our independence. So that is the status of research as far as, we are concerned. So there is a lot of stuff which needs to be done. We need to have people, oncologists, who have that aptitude for research and dedicate time towards research. It's not just about clinical trials. Clinical trials is just one part of it. Basic research is another. So let me also tell you one more thing, which is very important for doing clinical research. There is no documentation facility. For example, when we admit our patients, we just do handwriting, and all those files go into the MRD. If you have to retrieve the data from that MRD section, record section, my resident or my doctor has to, go after those files. And there are so many patients who are lost to follow up. The quality of research which you do on the clinic is also very, very,
dependent on the data.
Yeah. So you are not getting the consecutive data because you have lost to follow up patients. So what are we trying to say? So I'm playing as a devil's, advocate here, but that's the reality of research in India at this point in time.
So Dr. Shyam, all my optimism is quickly dissipating now. After I heard everyone, I was so optimistic.
You ask, there are Dr. Chanchal is there, Manish is there, Ruchika is there. You ask them how many first-class publications have come out of India in the field of cancer research and cancer development. Any new drug in the last 75 years has come from India? You tell me.
Okay, I know the answer is no, but Dr. Chanchal, then what is the way out? It's become the chicken and the egg story. We have to build our facilities, build the confidence so that global majors come and trust, our system here. But we don't have the people doing the time. We don't, we don't have people with time to research. We don't have money to support the research. How are we going to get there?
No, I think we do have people to do that kind of research, but we do not provide them with the infrastructure and the solidity of the funding which is required for research. By research in academia, we mean that our students will publish some papers, we will have some dissertations, and that's the end of it, research. That is not research. That is basically the continuous process of academia. That's the problem with our academia. I think as far as oncology is concerned, I believe there are various serious issues of other scientific areas where researches are being done. But as far as oncology is concerned, I think our academia, as Shyam said, there is hardly any research. By research, our academia means that we will publish a few papers, mostly the students who will be doing their dissertation. But my point is different. If you look at drug development research also, the entire funding is by the multinational companies. Where is our Indian pharmacy? The Indian pharmaceutical industry is huge, and it's a big proportion of the market in the global market. But where is their funding in research and development? What they do is actually I'm not saying that's bad. That provides cheaper medicines for our patients. That's equally important. But they are not into innovative research. They are creating biosimilars, creating generic drugs, which is also required. I think that's an important aspect of, because our patients, most of our patients, make out-of-pocket expenses. So these cheaper medicines are required from them. But our pharmaceutical industry can also fund research and development of innovative molecules. They do not do that. They have come short of that. And that is another area where it should be, because we really depend on the multinational companies where the drug is being developed in a Western laboratory and then the research is being brought into India for Indian patients to participate. But that's not enough. So I think our research pharmaceutical industry has to also join this thing. The other important thing, Anisha, I stay in Kolkata, 50 kilometers down the city. What are the facilities of medical treatment? There is a stark difference between what you have in the city and 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers outside the city. So there is a huge difference in the medical service in our country. That's not the situation abroad. So I think there are multiple areas which it's not a single area, but still, as with like you, Anisha, I am also optimistic because I have seen the change over a period of time. For the last 3 decades, we have seen, Shyam has also seen that change. We are still optimistic. At least what we are today is much better than what we were, say, 2 decades earlier. But still, where we are at this point of time is not enough. We are still far short.
Dr. Shyam, give me a minute. Let me just ask Ruchika for her response and I'll come to you. Ruchika, we've heard Dr. Shyam saying not enough research is being done. Clinical trials is not the only thing we need. And Dr. Chanchal saying that even Indian pharmaceutical, the drug factory of the world only makes copycats. How true is that?
Well, I agree with whatever Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal has said. And as Dr. Chanchal has said, we are optimistic. Now, one reason for my optimism is 5 years ago, we were not talking so much about breast cancer awareness, breast cancer research on such platforms, right? Now we are doing it. So there is definitely one reason for optimism. Now, the issues that Dr. Shyam has very well pointed out, which are the reality of our own cancer research this day, it would have a multifactorial and a multi-pronged approach to solution. It cannot be just one fix-it-all type of solution that we can give. It has to be multi-pronged, and all the policymakers and the powers that may be have to think about it and come up with these plans. Now, one suggestion that I can give from my side, because I'm on the researcher end, is, as Dr. Shyam said, acquiring funding for any kind of research is a long drawn process. Today, if I'm thinking of one topic for research, it's a given to me that it will take at least, this is the minimum, I would say, 2 to 3 years for me to secure funding to carry out that research, right? And this is only a short-term project for 3 years. Now, at the end of 2 years, if I have some very good results coming out of my research and I want to take it one step further, then you add another 2-3 years of securing that research funding to it, So the thing takes a very long time to see the light of the day, even if we develop something very optimistic and something which could possibly be the answer to the questions, right? So one is that. So as Sir pointed out, this is unlike the situation in the West. And one solution could be that the various funding agencies available in India, I would say, which are indigenous to India. I'm not talking about Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or, the international funding agencies. I'm talking about the agencies that are present in India. Now, all of them had their funding from the ministry and everything. However, the funding available to the researchers is very fragmented again. So, we need to have a central funding agency which dedicates a certain amount of funds to oncology research, and within the oncology research, it dedicates it, kind of makes partitions.
Segregates it.
Yes, makes partitions that this much money is available for breast cancer research. So people who are interested in breast cancer research know that that much money is there to be tapped into. You know, all you need to do is write a very good research proposal and show them that you are working on something that might work. Okay, this is one solution that comes to my mind immediately.
Okay, the suggestion is a good one. And I really think that there is no dearth of, I mean, it's my opinion, but there are, I'm sure, people who are going to fund this. The Tata Memorial Hospital was launched decades ago, and it started from this, an endowment that came. And I'm sure there are many philanthropists in our country who would also want to, contribute to this, because many companies contribute to patient treatment. So they could perhaps also look at contributing towards research. We just need a platform. We need people to come together and, create this voice that this needs to be done. Now, Vivek has told us his story, and it's a real heartbreaking story. But because of clinical research, because of innovative molecules that were newly launched, his wife got a lot of years to see her life, live her life, enjoy her life. So, Vivek, what kind of opinion do you have on clinical trial problems in our country, and what could be the solutions? We heard a lot from the clinician side, from the research end, from even the drug company perspective. What kind of solution do you see?
Thanks for asking this very important question. I agree with each and everyone. I agree with Dr. Shyam. The number of oncologists is a problem. We have 0.98 oncologists per million population in India. So yeah, I'm on the same page. However, there is a very different perspective and story which needs to be put on the center of everything. I agree with research and the money part, and become patient advocate, and especially for dedicated all time after Kusum on that part. And I am part of lot of advisory board with Ministry and Research Institute. What I learned is, first problem is culture and stigma that we are not talking. If we talk about the clinical trial, if I go to the oncologist, they will say they don't have time, which is true. But at the same time, Dr. Shyam Institutes, the other fellow panelists, Institute, Tata Hospital, AIMS, Rajiv Gandhi, they are also doing the clinical trials with the same policy, same rules, same regulation. However, number of top institutes, medical institutes, not doing or hardly doing any clinical trial. So that's the medical community. That is about awareness and acceptance of clinical trial culture. When it's come to the media, everything about clinical trial is negative. And when there is a negative culture, you don't find either industry or patient community or oncologists, doctors, clinicians, researchers part of it. So even if I speak, we got a lot of abuse that we may are getting money from the, from the company. And one journalist asked Kusum when she was alive, so you are a guinea pig. And Kusum replied that day during the press conference when we tried through our organization, she replied, if by participate in a clinical trial, if by being a guinea pig, I am alive, so I am proud to be a guinea pig. And that needs to be changed. The other problem is policymakers, the government. And the problem is, I was talking a couple of months back with one of the top bureaucrats who is looking at Ayushman Bharat about targeted therapy, and he was asking me what is targeted therapy. So the problem is, government is ready to work. Believe me, I was in a lot of meetings at this effort, and we have made the rule change. Only one patient voice was there. Someone has to let them know what is the problem. Solution is there. There are a lot of good things happen and could happen, but there is huge communication gap. I know Tata Memorial Kolkata, there are clinical trials going on, and I came to know that they don't find patients. And at the other hand, I have every day hundreds of emails, if not every alternate day, they are asking where is clinical trial. And if you go to the DCAGI website, you are not able to find the clinical trial. So first one is stigma, then lack of awareness. It is lack of awareness. And I don't agree. When I speak with someone, they say there is lack of awareness about clinical trial in patient community. No, I don't agree. Especially after COVID. After COVID, every layman understands what is clinical trial. Even my milkman discussing with me about what is clinical trial, what happened, sir, क्या हो रहा है COVID की clinical trial का. And we know with ivermectin HCQ, how clinical trial helps us to understand. So this lack of acceptance in the whole culture. The one more point of this lack of acceptance is we have a global group of ALK lung cancer, which is a rare cancer, and we raised $1 million globally, and we only for research for ALK lung cancer vaccine. And there was a tender out. There was not a single application came from India. All application came from US and Europe, and we give that money who are doing research. This research was driven by patient community, money collected by the patient community and philanthropists. So again, the things are the culture. Now, the last point is about global clinical trials and things. We can't change everything in one day. The solution is taking a step. When we are making our building pink in awareness of breast cancer, the day we are making lighting of our building in awareness of research and clinical trial, everything will be changed. Where we are seeing every other day, there is a need of millions of rupees through keto or other organization to save medicines which are part of other countries. So for example, the medicine Kusum purchased 18 lakh. Now that medicine, because Kusum participated in clinical trial, is 35,000 rupees per month. You see the difference when clinical trials comes to India. If every hospital, multi-bed hospital, only have one clinical trial, and if Dr. Shyam Institute, Tata Institute or anyone, only one clinical trial per year, everything will be changed. So I know there are a lot of elders, they are the right people, but we patients are not dying because of clinical trial. We patients are dying because we are not getting the clinical trials. And there are a lot of problems, but let's start with simple solution. We met with the health minister, we say, why are you limiting PI with 3 clinical trials? And he, on the same day, he relaxed the rules. So let us patients involved. We go to the health ministry. We go, everyone says there is a solution. But the problem is we are not on the same page, which was raised by some other panelists. We don't discuss. We individually, we are not we. And that's the problem. We have to create the culture of research and clinical trial. The only benefit from the COVID is that culture is now seeded. We have to work together to change this for future of our India.
Thank you, Vivek. And we have this platform where we are creating awareness about breast cancer. We have spoken a lot about early diagnosis and how that is the key to saving all those women who are dying needlessly. We will also talk about how clinical trials is not taboo. We believe in clinical trials. We believe they offer a bright future to the patients. And that is why we're having this discussion. Not so much so that we find out the problems and keep discussing the problems and keep going round and round, but when suggestions come from people like you, we hope that these suggestions are taken up by the policymakers and we find systems and we find ways to make clinical trials popular and possible in larger numbers in our country. Now, as part of our meaningful action and awareness to eradicate breast cancer from India, we feel that there is a need for a national pledge in the form of a public campaign to create awareness amongst the masses about breast cancer and taking appropriate and necessary actions to come out of it. Through this national pledge, we invite government, responsible authorities, private organizations, educational institutions, cancer survivors, influencers, and prominent personalities from various segments to come forward and show the solidarity and support of the National Pledge campaign to build accessible infrastructure, information centers, and create awareness on prevention and timely treatment to eradicate breast cancer from India. We wholeheartedly welcome Novartis for supporting this massive drive and are privileged to have the support of all our panelists on this discussion today. I request all of you to please go and sign this pledge, and you just have to go to this website, ihwcouncil.org, and sign this pledge. And we will continue with this pledge campaign to fight breast cancer until we have achieved 0 cases in India. Today, let's all pledge to make Bharat breast cancer more. We heard so many sides to this story on research and clinical developments. I would like to come to Mr. Mistry. Now, we've heard, how thousands of trials are happening around the world, but very few are being done in India. So, how do you think breast cancer patients in India can reach the maximum benefits of the latest R&D happening here in other parts of the world?
So I think as a innovative company, at least Novartis I can speak about, and I can also say other innovative companies, they do want to conduct clinical trials in India. One, because that helps to get Indian patient experience. Also, our doctors get experience of that new innovation in clinical trials. Two, the patient gets access to this innovative medicine and thereby saving their life. I think if the regulatory mechanism is more conducive, it was not conducive in 2012-13, which Vivek alluded to, and then thereafter it improved a lot, and because of that, the clinical trial inflow in the country started again. But I think that momentum has to be continued, and then thanks to the regulatory approval timelines by DCGI, the timelines has reduced considerably, and that's why India is becoming a preferred country now to have more and more clinical research in India. So I think we should continue this momentum which is there. I think all the stakeholders are aligned that clinical trials are required in India, and just continue to support. I think it's a matter of time where more and more clinical trials will come to India. The second point I wanted to highlight is making India as an attractive market to start a commercial operation for those organizations who are not present in India and those who are doing clinical trials. I think for them, they are still double-minded whether India can be a good market for them. And because of this hesitancy, they do not initiate their commercial operation in India, and thereby they do not conduct the
trials
clinical trials. Yeah. Okay. So I think, though one may say that India is a 1.4 billion population. There's a huge market, which is true, but it's a huge market for say white goods or the consumer goods. But for high-ended cutting-edge clinical medicines, I think it is still not, because of various reasons. And the first and foremost reason is out of pocket. Patient has to shell out money for their treatment. I think that's the biggest hurdle for getting access to innovative medicine. Though there's a big initiative by the government of India to provide free healthcare by Ayushman Bharat as a health scheme, but it's still limited to hospitalization and some of the basic care. It has to move ahead and then also include innovative medicines in that package. And I'm sure government is working towards that. But all these initiatives will help that India becomes a more larger market. Where why is China a large market? Now, always the question comes that why is China a large market? Because government supports innovation over there. Government buys innovative medicines over there, and that's why most of the multinational will have a separate strategy for China. They will have separate a team working for R&D over there in China. It doesn't happen in India. Why? Because the support to the innovation is limited in the country, and if that support increases, I'm sure it would be a different story.
All right, Dr. Mistry, it's a little unfair, but I'm going to ask you this question because Dr. Chanchal raised this. He said that Indian drug companies are just doing copycats and they do not invest in their own innovative drugs. Is that true? Because I don't want you to take names, but there are a few companies that do post trial data on their own innovative molecules for different diseases, not necessarily breast cancer. Do you think enough work is being done by the Indian drug companies when it comes to innovative drugs? And it doesn't necessarily be breast cancer, because even in the field of tuberculosis, malaria, we are seeing some companies coming up with their own IPs. So do you think that nothing is being done? Do you think there is more scope? What are your views? Very briefly.
So I must say that there are few companies who have understood the value of research, and they are investing in fundamental research and drug discovery. However, that is not enough. I think there's more to come. And I think that's where the expansion. See, again, why would an Indian company invest in research when they are not going to get returns from India? It's a basic business model, right? You put in money and you need to get that money back also, right? So that you can again put that money in research. And that cycle is lacking currently in India, where there is not enough motivation or not enough commercial sense for a company to invest in basic R&D and get the returns from India. They are dependent for that returns outside India. But outside India, the regulatory hurdles are very, very high. You need to conduct all the basic research and also complete the clinical research, and the cost is very high. So I think that's what I would like to just end over here. Maybe Dr. Aggarwal, you have some comments on that.
Yeah, Anisha, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, so this drug industry which Chanchal raised is a very important component of research. And unfortunately, their expenditure on research by Indian companies, I believe, is less than 5%. So Ruchika ji and the government of India. So like you have the mandate on CSR, Vivek, this is very important. Why can't we mandate the Indian drug companies like Reddy's and Natco and Intas, you name it, to spend 20% of their earnings on basic research? Unless you begin at home, we cannot stay dependent on America or Europe, etc. You keep harping about this, for the next 100 years. You will not get anywhere. The thing has to begin from within. So I urge ICMR, I urge DBT, DST, and the Ayushman people and Modi ji to tell these industry people they are minting money through biosimilars. I mean, the labor cost is so cheap over here. When a molecule comes from America, which is 20 lakhs, the cost here is 30,000. Why? Only because, it has been researched before and the labor cost is so very cheap. So I think we need to look into this. I mean, this is one solution. Like you have mandated CSR for all the companies in the country. Why can't you have, focus on basic research to develop new drugs? And companies like Intas and Reddy's and so on, they have the infrastructure and they're expanding. They have become billionaires. I don't know what they're doing with the billions. So I'm sure this message can go loud and clear through this panel discussion to thousands of people and to the policymakers. Thank you.
Dr. Shyam, if you look at the company reports, you will see every quarter there is a spend on R&D. Okay.
So the percentage which they spend is very little.
So you're saying that the government should mandate a minimum that these companies should.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And then that should be monitored. So if they are producing anti-cancer drugs and they're making profit from anti-cancer drugs, let them spend the money on cancer drug discovery. So let there be some kind of a proposal drafted from ICMR, from all of us or whatever, so that at least people who are directly engaged in research focus on cancer drug discovery and research, rather than, just creating biosimilars. I know biosimilars are important. Copycats are very important. You're supplying to Africa, you're supplying to, South America and so on. So, but ultimately you are making money out of it, no? So when you're making money out of it, so then let the direction of thinking and research be there. So why should it be missing? I mean, you see, for example, China has developed their immune checkpoint inhibitors. Each month treatment is costing 4 lakhs. And at the moment, Indians are not able to pay. As Manish said, these high-end drugs, nobody can pay. And immune checkpoint inhibitors are being used to treat 25 cancers, common cancers. Nobody can afford that. So it's a drawing room drug for us. If Indians could produce that for a cheaper price, the lives could change for, lakhs of people. So where is that focus on research? I don't see any, neither from the government, nor from, ICMR, nor from Tata Memorial, etc., etc. I mean, you got nothing. I'm very clear on that. And if I were to be proven wrong, kindly show me 5 papers from the best journals in the world. That is the, hallmark of research, that you're delivering your research in the high quality journals of the world. There is none whatsoever. So we keep talking of research, and there is nothing.
Okay, it's time for Danda, and that should work.
No, it's time for action, for a planned action, I guess. You need to be, you see, India is focusing on communicable diseases. There is no focus or very little focus on non-communicable diseases.
But Dr. Shyam, look at the history so far, no? And the communicable diseases were the biggest killers so far. Only now have we started focusing on the NCTs. So,
right,
you know,
I know. I mean that has been understood now for the last 5-10 years. So these kind of panel discussions and meetings should propel the government and the policymakers to think for the non-communicable diseases and focus on diseases like cancer, which focus is missing.
the government does have a plan for NCDs, and let's hope that some of the points raised here, we will try to present this in a suggestion to the authorities so that at least some of, some action can be taken. Now, I'm going to quickly take some concluding remarks from all of you. We'll come to the close of the show. Dr. Anju, give me your one biggest idea so that research becomes mainstream in our country and it benefits the patients as quickly as possible.
Yeah, start having awareness of the importance of research in our curriculum and also among the people around, and also incorporate, incorporate all stakeholders. I don't think it's just the oncologist or the basic research people. Everybody, it should start, the research mind should start from younger days. Nowadays nobody wants to do research. Everybody
Yes,
wants
nobody
to be
wants to teach. You just
yes,
want to
yes.
earn. You just want to
That's it. We
get
have
on
to
the
have that.
bandwagon.
We have to have that. As Dr. Shyam and Dr. Chanchal, and I was also part of the clinics, we know that we are overburdened, and oncology needs a big support for the research. And as I said, it's a threefold. In-house we have to start. That is in India itself. We have to hold hands from Asia Pacific region. I would say not just Europe and US. There are lots happening in Asia Pacific region, neighboring countries of us, like China said, Korea, Taiwan. Everybody are doing well, and we might
third?
have some drugs coming up. And third is and we should, and I would say any question has a solution inbuilt. We have to find that solution faster, not after 10 years. Oncology, even you say about communicable disease, maybe we can wait for some time. Oncology patients, we can't say just wait for 2 months. Some trials treatment will come. By the time patient would have gone, and that's not. Everything should be immediate, and we have to buck up. That's what I said. Everybody should buck up and act. It's everybody's responsibility. And we have industries. One always, I think, as last year I had an advisory board on immuno-oncology. What sir said triggered my mind. Really, there are big gaps. We have to, immuno-oncology is in a rise. We have to bring it to our patients. And what Mr. Vivek said, it's really that awareness of clinical trial has to be built up in patients. They should be scared. Because of the risk, oncologist doesn't want to take clinical trials. And many of them are not aware. That is also true. We have to have in conferences, one of the clinical trial sessions, which should be made aware. So that's I think few points which I touched. Thanks a lot. I'm positive it might happen, but it's a hard work.
Dr. Mistry, your concluding point, your top idea to make breast cancer research mainstream and get immediate results for patients in our country.
I think India is a powerhouse for software or informatics. We have a lot of companies from India who are doing global projects for IT. I think big data is one which I would suggest, or which I would think could help a lot in clinical research. We have data with everybody. Data is there, as Dr. Shyam Aggarwal was saying, but it's lying somewhere in MRD.
In a prescription, yes.
Yes, data is there with the insurance companies. Data is there with the academic institutes. Data is there with the pharma company. So, all multinational pharma companies, of what I know, including Novartis, has this project of analyzing our own data internally from thousands of clinical trials which we have done, and learn from that data how the research can be accelerated, how can we bring the new drugs faster and faster. I think India can play an important role in collating this data, and I think the National Health Mission or the Digital Health Mission, is certainly going to help if it is implemented well. And I think like what Aadhaar is now, foundation for everything. If we can ensure that happens, I think the data integration for an individual can be tremendous, and then that health information or the research information can be available in a meaningful manner for all the stakeholders. So I would say data, work on big data and how to ensure that data is available for appropriate interpretation.
Okay, Dr. Ruchika, I'm going to take your concluding remarks, your top idea to make breast cancer research mainstream in our country.
Well, my idea would be to basically bring the funding agencies together and to channelize, harmonize, and prioritize cancer research in India?
Okay, thank you. Dr. Chanchal, your top idea for making breast cancer research mainstream in our country. You're muted, Dr. Chanchal. Request you to please unmute yourself.
Well, one has to understand that whatever improvement in survival, a large chunk of survival improvement we have noticed, not only in breast cancer but other cancers as well, is primarily because of clinical research and innovative drugs and other ways of therapy. So one has to understand that. If we want to make our cancer patients do well and live longer, it is clinical research. That's the only way, and innovative drugs. So I think the most important thing is the change in mindset. As Vivek said, I have seen in the last 2 decades, there has been a change in the mindset of the patients and a positiveness to get themselves included in clinical trials, which is very good for India. I've also seen a change in the mindset of clinicians to do more clinical trials. Though there has been some hindrance, but majority of the clinicians are inclined to do clinical trials, and they are most willing to do clinical trials in the areas of unmet need, rather than doing some clinical trials where which has been generated in the West, and you will get 1 patient in a year. So I think I am not looking at that sort of a clinical trial. So I think that has also changed. But what has not changed is actually the mindset of the hospital authorities to let you do clinical trials, and majority of the hospital, we are fortunate in working in certain hospitals where clinical trial is a part of the entire process, but I think majority of the hospitals are not willing to do clinical trials because of their own problems. So I think that mindset has to change. There has to be a mindset change in the policymakers and in the administrations to make clinical trials mandatory and support clinical trials and make regulations easier. And of course, as I said, Indian pharmaceutical industry has to come forward and participate with multinational pharmaceutical industries. And as Shyam has given us an idea, to mandate that they have to share some amount of their profit, which may be 20%, whatever it is, into clinical research and drug development. I think these are the most important. And lastly and not the least, there has to be a good press. Bad press has made enough damage for clinical research and clinical trial. I think journalists need to buck up and they have to behave responsibly. So I think that's very important, because the media is very important. You can reach a large number of people through media houses. So media has to make a positive impact on clinical research and drug development, and they can mobilize thoughts, I believe, which have to be done in the right way. Thank you very much.
Right. Vivek, a short conclusion from you. You've heard so many ideas today in addition to what ideas you have. Your biggest takeaway on how we can spend more on breast cancer research within our country so that treatments are available quicker to patients?
So number 1 is make everyone understand that clinical trial is the most reasonable solution of huge unmet medical problem of India. And it is win-win for government, public sector, health sector, oncology researchers, and we public. That's the first one. And once they understand, half of the problem is the solution. Second one is timeline of the approvals, which is easy to amend if you are proposing anything. So still there is a huge timeline to get a clinical trial approval, and we have lost in our cancer group many of the global clinical trials because other countries clinical trial started and we are still at the enrollment stage, and some of them completed and we are still at the enrollment stage. Simple solution can be done in 1 meeting if you can please propose on behalf of us. The third one is social media use, which covered by also media, but the social media, and I will connect it to the point, which is again a simple solution. If government can help or we together, is there is lot of still clinical trial going on, but they don't find patients, or patient find clinical trial. Can we have a system where they can find where clinical trial going on? In US, there is advertisement of clinical trial without naming the drug. Can we do something so that everyone knows what's happening? And when that is happening, people will speak. And to end, which I have mentioned, is culture of research. When it is started, when you have started today, with this discussion. If it continues, even within a year, we can see a huge change. Thank you.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope we see a huge change in just 2 years' time. Dr. Shyam, your last concluding word.
So my only word is, as Vivek said, the culture of research. How will that come? So it can only come if you encourage the oncologists to do PhD, which is what is almost mandated in US and Europe for all people who are into the academic institutions. So unless you have that research mind of doing PhD, then you're focusing on one thing. Once you focus on a thing, then you develop newer and newer thoughts. And that's how the work culture or research culture comes in. So if, of course, funding, etc., and all are there. So if you can tell the oncologist to do PhD, I think your job is going to be done in the next 5 to 10 years. But it's easier said than done. It's not a quick fix solution. So I wish it was China where I could, enforce everybody to enroll in PhD. And then, I'm sure so many research ideas will come and you will see the success of research in cancer. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today and coming up with cracker of ideas on how we can mainstream research in our country, have more people focus on it, have more funds coming to research so that patients in our country don't have to wait years for an innovation that has come about abroad to come to our country at a price that they can afford. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Chanchal, Dr. Shyam, Vivek, Dr. Anju, Dr. Ruchika, Dr. Manish. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your perspectives on research and clinical trials in breast cancer in India. We'll wrap up the show here, but we will continue this conversation on breast cancer. We'll be back with another show, and we will keep this flame burning all through this month, where we will discuss all aspects of breast cancer so that we can bring about a positive change. If nothing else, check with your mom, check with your girlfriend, check with your sister. Have you done your self-test exam every month? Be a buddy to the ladies in your house, and we'll get the message across. Thank you all for joining us. Goodbye.